How do you know if your digital strategy's working? That's this week on Think Tank Tuesday. Hi, I'm Paul Potratz, and welcome to this week's Think Tank Tuesday. Do you know if your digital strategy is really working? The money you're spending on digital marketing, is it really working? Do you have that stress at night? Boy, let me tell you, I've got that stress. I've had that stress, and I've had many business owners say, I don't know if my digital's working. Well, the problem is they don't have the proper analytics. In other words, they don't have the proper measurement tools in place. I'm going to give you 7 things that you can look for to know your digital strategy's working. Because digital is different than traditional. But a lot of times we approach our digital strategy like we do a traditional strategy, and we've heard over and over that digital marketing is all measurable. We can measure everything. That is true. You can measure everything. But the question is, are you measuring the right things? So number 1, I want you to start off with the phone. I know you're busy. You've got everything going on. I mean, you've got all these got-a-minute meetings and you don't have time. You need to carve out time every single week where you go through your phone calls and listen to your phone calls. Because if you're doing a digital strategy, surely you're using tracking numbers on your website. Surely you're using dynamic ads and dynamic retargeting ads, and you've got those specific 800 numbers to be able to listen. Click-to-call ads. Of course you do. That's why you need to listen. I was going through some phone calls of a client, and I was amazed what I heard. There was a customer, or a prospective customer, let's say it was a lost customer, that called in and said, hey, I'm calling about that 2013 blue Ford something or another that you've got on your website. And the sales guy was like, oh yeah, well we had it, but we sent it to auction, so it's not available anymore, but thanks for calling. Click. I mean, really? And then her husband calls back and said, hey, I know that you sent that Ford, whatever it was, that blue Ford to auction, but do you have any other vehicles like that? So the customer was trying, or prospective customer was trying really hard to do business with the client, but the salesperson just wasn't getting it because the salesperson couldn't really seem to think through and say, oh, yeah, I do have something different. In fact, that prospective customer even said, well, can you give me a call and tell me what you got? And the salesperson read the phone number back, but read it incorrectly and said, okay, and I'll call you back. Click. If you're listening to your phone calls, you can hear what's going on. I know we're talking about digital, but you need to measure everything that's going on. Number 2. And number 2 is as important as all 7 items. Time spent on your website. Are you looking at how long people are spending on your website? Look at the organic traffic and look at the paid traffic. It's going to be 2 different times. Normally, paid search traffic is going to be less than organic traffic, but don't let that stress you because there's other measurements to know. So the industry standard for automotive is around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's right, 2.5 minutes for time spent on the website. As you're building your digital strategy, you want to do different things to say, let's get it up to 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Let's get it to 3 minutes. Let's get it to 3.5 minutes, and so on and so forth. In fact, the websites that we build, the clients that are using our websites, average time is anywhere from 7 minutes to 11 minutes. And the way we do that is with a lot of content. There was a study done last year, and the average car shopper would look at 22 different websites while they're in the buying mode, while they're doing their research. That's way too many. And the reason that is because the dealers' websites don't have content. All they are is a laundry list. Here's the car, here's the inventory, and here's a price. And even a lot of times they don't have prices. And are you even doing weekly specials? Are you doing specials on your website? If not, do it. So the goal of number 2 is time spent on your website. If you're 2.5 minutes or less, you've got problems. You need to work on that. Again, paid search time spent on the website is going to be less, but that's fine because surely you've got retargeting on your website, so they pick up that code, they leave your website, and they see your ads over and over. So let's move to number 3. Number 3 is bounce rate. What is the bounce rate of your website? What is the bounce rate of your organic traffic? And what is the bounce rate of your paid traffic? Industry standard is anywhere from 38 to 65% bounce rate. So that sounds like a lot. But again, You need to know these things. So for your organic traffic, if you're 38 to up into the 70%, you need to work on the bounce rate. And there's some tactics you can do to bring the bounce rate down. One of the best ones is more content on your website. Make your website a resource. Now, while you're watching your bounce rate and you're seeing the bounce rate go down, you're understanding that that paid search campaign, the digital marketing you're doing, you are in fact getting traffic to your website. So while you want to measure all of the lead forms and the phone calls, yeah, you need to measure that, but there's other pieces of the puzzle. Again, bounce rate. Now let's move on to number 4, since we're talking about bounce rates. Number 4 is the lead forms. How many lead forms are being filled in? Do you have conversion tracking on your website? You need to have conversion tracking on your website. And the company that you're working with for digital marketing, you need to ask the question, I need to know my conversions and my view-through conversions. 2 different measurement tools. So a conversion is where somebody's come to your website off paid search and they fill in a lead form. That's a conversion form. In other words, first time visit, they filled in a lead form, conversion. A view-through conversion is where somebody came to your website, looked around, they left your website, and then they seen one of your ads, like a retargeting ad. They clicked on that retargeting ad, came back to your website, and then filled in a lead form. In other words, they didn't do it on the first time. They came back again through a paid source, and that's called your view-through conversions. So in other words, think about it as second chance advertising. So as we're going down the list, hopefully you can see how everything's starting to pull together, that I don't want you to measure just lead forms. A lot of times we think, oh, we're doing digital marketing. We're thinking one-dimensional. We're doing paid search. We're doing video pre-roll. We're doing retargeting. We're doing all this digital marketing. Therefore, I should be getting all my leads through a form conversion, or I should be getting all my leads through phone calls. No, that's not what's going on, people. No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, you are getting some, but that's not going to be all of it. Your website is what your newspaper ad used to be. It's what your yellow page ad used to be. People are going and using your website just like a newspaper ad. They're researching. They're looking. I mean, they're looking at prices. And then they just decide to show up. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Number 5. Number 5 is one that's critically important. We're doing all of this advertising, whether it's traditional media and digital media, and you're spending your money, you're spending your ad dollars in place, and you're saying, oh, my digital's not working. My question to you is, are you tracking your leads? Are you tracking all of your lead sources? And if you're like most that I talk to, you're really not tracking all of your leads. So let me explain what I mean by that, though. You know how many leads you got coming in every month. And a lot of times I hear, oh, those are not good quality leads and da-da-da-da-da. Really? I mean, don't ever tell me, oh, it was some 12-year-old kid that was shopping for their mom and they submitted a lead on that shiny new Corvette. No, that's not happening. That's because you're not tracking your leads. And what I mean by tracking your leads, here's a question. I'm going to pose this question to you. How many individuals do you have handling leads coming through to your website? So do you know that? Exactly who are these individuals? Do you know that? The next thing is how many leads are each individual receiving? In other words, let's say you got Tom, you got Bob, you got Steve, and they're all handling leads. How many leads did Tom receive, Bob receive, and Tom, did I say that right? Tom, did I say that right, Joe? Tom, Bob, and Steve. There you go. So do you know how many leads each one of those individuals received? If you don't, you need to know that. Now, out of those leads each one of those individuals received, what was their response time? Do you know what Tom's response time is? Do you know what Bob's is? And do you know what Steve's is? If you don't, you're not tracking your leads. Now we move to the next stage. After response time, do you know what is their appointment ratio? Out of these people, how many did they actually contact? How many of them did they establish contact with? Do you know that percentage? Out of the ones that established contact, do you know how many, really, what was the number? How many appointments did they schedule? So you see how we move all the way down the line and we know exactly how Tom's doing, how Bob's doing, and how Steve is doing. Because individuals are all different. That's why we're called individuals. So Tom might be much more productive than Steve, but Bob might be the most organized one of the bunch, so he can handle more leads. So it's really important to know all the way through the process on who's receiving the leads and how they're handling it. Again, Bob might be really organized, Steve might be better on the phone, but then we might have the other guy that's really good in making sure individuals are showing up for their appointment. So tracking your leads is important. And there's going to be difference between your organic leads of how well they convert and what your paid leads are and what your third-party leads and your auto trader leads. All of your leads are going to do different. So you need to know that. By knowing that, you can say, you know what? When we're doing organic things on our website, in other words, when we're creating squeeze pages, landing pages, conversion pages on our website, and we get leads off of that, the likelihood of them showing up and buying a car is much higher. Therefore, now you can start to justify the expense of putting more landing pages in place. In other words, for content writing on your website. You could also find out, too, that you're retargeting, whenever somebody clicks your retargeting ads, a view through conversion, whatever it might be, that you're getting more conversion off of that. That's the type of tracking you need to do. Now let's move on to the next one. Number 6, traffic to your website. And I think this is one of the most important ones, to be honest. I mean, this really should be number 1. You start doing paid advertising and you should look at it over time. Are you getting more traffic to your website? Are you getting more people to your website? Again, you need to pay attention to the bounce rate and the time spent on your website through the paid advertising. But the name of the game is, are you getting more traffic to your website? I'm not discounting if you've got a high bounce rate, you need to fix it. There's no doubt. But I don't want to give you an industry standard on what a bounce rate should be for your paid traffic. I want you to look at what it is right now and say, how do we make it better? It's just like we talk about closing ratios. Oh, this is what our internet department should be closing at. Don't pay attention to those industry standards. Pay attention to where you're at and improve on that. So traffic to your website. Are you getting more traffic to your website? If so, then you're doing some things correctly. As long as your bounce rate's not, upper 80, 90, 100%, of course. But if it is, there could be some problems. So it will help you to kind of find out those problems. Quit measuring everything strictly by how many leads am I getting through the digital strategy. So traffic to your website, take a look at it and see what your new traffic is and see what your returning traffic is. Look at those numbers. Now let's move on to the next one. Number 7. Well, this one's not going to be brain surgery. But chances are you're looking at your website analytics and you're looking at some other analytics like Google Analytics. Stop doing that. I want you to look at one analytics. And the one analytic I want you to look at is Google Analytics. Quit looking at the website analytics. I don't care whose website platform, even if you're on our website. Our algorithm is different than what Google's algorithm is. And if you're doing paid search, paid advertising, if you're doing video pre-roll and retargeting and all the things that we offer, well, we're basing our decisions on those paid campaigns on Google Analytics, because chances are that's where the most of your money, the most of your budget's being spent on Google. Don't forget Yahoo and Bing and Facebook, because those are all great mediums. But Google Analytics is the one I want you to focus on. Don't ever look at your website analytics, because it will keep you awake at night. Again, it's a different algorithm. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying anybody's cheating or anything like that. That's not the case. It's just a different algorithm. So use Google Analytics. In closing, when you're doing digital marketing, it's not all about how many leads am I receiving through a lead form being filled in and how many phone calls am I getting. I mean, that's important. You need to look at that. You need to track that. You need to source your leads. You need to do all of that. But it all works together collectively, because paid advertising, if it's driving traffic to your website and they're looking at multiple pages, in other words, if they're looking at an average of, let's say, 3.26 pages on your website, then the paid advertising's working. It's a beautiful thing. If you want to think about it in a traditional sense, think about back in the day when you used to do newspaper advertising. And they would sit there and they would go to the newspaper and they would look at multiple cars. They would look at this car, and this car in your newspaper ad. Well, that was kind of 3-page views of today. We didn't have the same type of tracking with a newspaper ad, of course, and you didn't hold your newspaper as accountable as you can what your digital strategy is. So just ease up a little bit and look at the entire piece, in other words, the entire puzzle, and say, okay, my digital strategy is working. How do we improve on it? If you need any help with your digital advertising, if you need a new website, if you need marketing automation, inbound marketing, if you need any help with your marketing strategy, whether it's traditional or digital, we're here and we can do it all for you. I mean, everybody, people are calling us a one-stop shop. So give us a call, and I hope you found this video of help, and we'll see you next week.